This feels quite spread out.
It does. I'm like trying to move in already.
Shoulder to shoulder hugging or something. Maybe not hugging, but
closer.
But definitely shoulder to shoulder. So this is fun to be here, and thanks for coming out and being part of Brand Innovators. I love the kind of flipping the whole bit. I'm used to being the one that's being asked the questions, and used to think that was hard. And then as we were doing prep here, I was like, wait a minute, like I have to actually structure this thing a little bit. So anyway, appreciate this time. We try and keep this pretty real. So just kind of jumping into it. One of the things that we wanted to talk about clearly is the future, and everyone has a point of view on the future. But the reality is, right now, as a brand marketer, I would say the economy, the state of a lot of things is really present. So the word that I'm sure we're all sick of hearing is, we've got to be smarter, we've got to think differently, and the reality of that is doing a lot. At the same time, the realism of the fact that measurement and proving out what you do is more important than ever before. So with that as a kind of reality backdrop, I'd love to hear from the three of you on like what is something that, despite whatever happens in our economy, whatever happening in our companies, that is just a don't miss opportunity in 2023.
Yeah, so I'll kick it off kind of talking about, I think leveraging cross-channel is going to be a huge boom going into next year. I think that's been a hot topic for a long time. But I think typically when we're thinking cross-channel, a lot of times those channels are not actually connected. So thinking about how can you connect that with data, how can you connect that with better creative that actually aligns across all of these channels, and thinking about how you're interacting with the consumer itself. So obviously can't help but plug a little bit of programmatic out of home. I do think it's having a little bit of its moment right now, after I think out of home was probably put to the side for a bit in COVID and, kind of seeing people spending a lot more time inside. I think people are really embracing their surroundings, and I think we're seeing more of that data, better creativity, and better measurement coming into the fold across every channel, including out of home.
Yeah. Awesome. So out of home.
To echo that point, I agree. I think programmatic out of home, I'm really excited about. When you look at TikTok right now, it's 5-6 billion, probably going to go to 11-12 billion, they're saying. It's just a phenomenal advertising platform. And then anything video, if you look at what's going on with Instagram Reels right now, YouTube Shorts, I think those are something really exciting that we see. So I think influencers still going to be pretty big, but boy, they're a pain in the ass to deal with. So I think the execution, until we figure out a better way for executing influencer partnerships and even some brand collaborations, obviously those are hot. But boy, the execution is a pain in the ass. So I would like to just do more straight up advertising that works. So I'm excited about that.
On my end, I'm very excited and bullish. Can't miss opportunities. Really, it's around first-party data, privacy, what we're doing with it, how a brand, a company, a platform can be a leader in that space. When you start talking about the merger of brand and performance marketing, that's coming. It's already here. You have changes with Apple, which they've done, in my opinion, an excellent job of selling privacy from a consumer standpoint. But when you start looking, and to your point about moving faster, you cannot miss is leveraging machine learning. It's such an opaque kind of space. Everyone has AI, everyone has a machine learning platform. But what we're starting to see now is more clients coming to us and saying, hey, you're mobile, we understand that, but can we use your machine learning platform to glean insights to inform out of home, linear, CTV? It just allows people to be more nimble, marketers to be smarter, and to leverage data in such much more of a meaningful way that it's actionable and measured. And with that, you get cost efficiencies. And I'm sure I'm looking at a group of people here who have, I'm sure, endless amounts of teammates. And, really large teams, but when you start talking about efficiency, marketing efficiency, activity efficiency, you really think about machine learning. Also, really lock in with some experts in the space, because there is a lot of stuff out there when it comes to AI, machine learning, and whatnot. And really pay attention to that. I think that's going to probably be the most exciting space in the next 12 to 18 months.
So summarizing, it's looking back at other formats that may have been parked for a little while and really thinking about cross-channel efforts, really amazing creative, right? Really thinking about platforms. I'm going to dig in on you on a point here that you made here in just a second.
I might get on a
as
soapbox
more of a
in a
creative
minute.
mind. And then certainly the data and measurement. Before we go on, I want to talk about measurement. Tell me a little bit more about this. The influencers are difficult to work with. I want to get back to doing advertising.
Well, we come to these conferences, at least for me, and I sit back and like, man, smart thinking, smart insights. And then we get in the trenches and the work has to get done. And then, we see the best of the work here, but there's a lot of shit work out there. When you look at platform by platform, and you look at when things are being executed, it's not good. So I was just in San Diego with 10 of the top independent agencies in the U.S. We're talking about the biggest agencies that aren't publicly traded. We've all worked in the publicly traded space or have people that work there, and there's not enough creatives, I'm sorry, whether it's brand side, your media partners, or agencies, to get the amount of executional work done platform by platform, which is why you're seeing shit work in different platforms that aren't right for the platform. So I think for me and what I'm seeing and what we're trying to get our agency group to really think about is I think you need both. We heard the buzz term of the day, I think, is now North Star, right? It was Meta, I think, last year, influencers maybe the year before, purpose brand driven stuff maybe 4 years ago, and we're talking about North Star. And to me, what that means is I think we have to get back to the old school purpose driven creative process that takes differentiation in place. It takes what's really true and purposeful about your brand in place, and then finding those consumer insights and really developing a brand platform that's amazing. And we'll call it North Star. Okay, I'll call it a brand platform. And then that's just the table stakes piece of it. Then you have to have the amazing execution platform by platform. And a programmatic digital billboard is way different than a TikTok ad. But what's happening in the business when you're really in the trenches is the 25-year-old art director and designer are doing all the creative execution on each one of those. And they're not specialists, whether that's an e-gaming ad or a metaverse ad. And I think we're kidding ourselves when we're talking about thousands of different creative executions off this brand platform in platform by platform specific to really get great work, I think is kind of unheard of. And I think we need to really think about how many platforms we're doing and how much stress we're putting on creative teams right now, because we don't have the staff or the horses, I'm sorry, even the biggest brands in the world, to really get it done. Like some of our, clients will say rhymes with Disney. There's no reason they should be paying an independent ad agency like us in Phoenix, Arizona to do, 20,000 social media ads. If they could do that and staff it, believe me, they would. But I think we're putting a ton of pressure on creatives. And so we're talking about all this smart shit and then crappy work's getting done. So like for us and for me, like what I'm trying to focus on, what I'm trying to get our team focused on is like get back to the basics a little bit. And again, it's got to be both. It's purpose-driven creative platform and amazing execution in each one. So if we have to do less shit to make the work better, maybe we should be thinking about that, at least for me.
No, I completely agree. Kind of changing out of my moderator role, I would say as a brand advertiser, and I'll speak for all of us since I have authority to speak for all of us. We as clients need to do a better job with our agencies and our other partners to be more realistic about what we're asking for and to come in and give our customers, our prospective customers, and all of our partners who are creating all that stuff the respect that's deserved, to have something that really is relevant for each platform, that isn't completely just spit out by some dynamic platform. And there's some great platforms. We use them. We're a fairly big advertiser, but we kind of play into this problem. Like purpose built is the now and the future. I couldn't agree more. I know, Lucy, you've seen some crazy stuff when it comes to out of home. And just for full disclosure, we didn't know this ahead of time. We didn't pick the panel this way, but we actually do quite a bit with Lucy and her team with digital out of home, and it's hot. It's done some really good stuff for us. But I don't know if there's any add-on from the creative perspective that you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the silliest stuff that we've gotten is a really great ad for online that someone wants to run on a billboard. You can't click on a button that's on a billboard unless you're going to run off the highway and climb up that ladder, which actually those companies pay a lot of insurance for people that fall off of those. So I would not recommend it. But I mean, I think that's one of the things that we've seen. I think aside from that, we've seen really archaic creative too, creative that looks like it was built 20 years ago for a company that then gets bad measurement results and can't understand why, even though they applied all the right targeting and maybe had a strong offer, but none of that came across in the creative itself. I think the other thing that's often a big miss is that balance of scale and specialization. I think that's a lot of what you were talking about, Scott, is I think sometimes big teams and being part of a larger organization can almost cut off the innovation because you're just trying to figure out how to get stuff done. So I think spending more time and thinking about the execution, who you're reaching, is this relevant to the surroundings? And there are really easy ways to do that, whether it's addressing the right person, creating more of a personalized approach. So kind of thinking about some of the work we've done, and, you know, for your internet services, that isn't available everywhere. So you can't just do DMA targeting. You need to think about those specific zip codes and where those products are actually provided. So I think the idea of having scale is great, but you also want to make sure that you're reaching the right people with the right message, because that's going to resonate a whole lot better than just trying to take every dollar that you're given and run it. Versus, I actually think that as marketing platforms, we need to do a better job of doing right sometimes by our clients and kind of pushing them sometimes back a little bit and saying, I think if you did it this way, it could be really beneficial, because more times than not, brands will actually take that advice and I think are very receptive to how that's going to help create and drive better results.
Yeah, exactly. Tell us a little bit about measurement. So I feel like there's this drug that we've all been taking for a while, where you can measure so many things, and yet it still feels like there's a lot of things we can't measure. Like what should we be thinking about now and next year?
Yeah, that's a great point. With regards to measurement overall, I mean, the game has changed. That's, really the headline there. Apple has changed how they are focusing in terms of measurement. Privacy is very important, much more relevant now, especially in DC, which I think really changes the environment of what we can measure, why are we measuring it, and it begs some questions. Is this effective? Are we just analyzing data to the point where we're just paralyzing the creative ability and nimbleness to be in the market, to put together creative messages in the right place, in the right time, using those channels? So as we look at attribution, especially in CTV and mobile, we will continue to see that collision of different vendors, different platforms, probably over the next 24 to 36 months. Once Google takes, the other 50% of the mobile universe and changes how attribution and measurement is played there, I think it's going to be really challenging for brands to lean on partners and say, hey, what can you tell me about this audience? What can you tell me about this campaign? As it goes back to creative, we use a process called dynamic creative optimization in a lot of cases, where you can take 10, 20 pieces of creative, put it into a machine learning platform, and that will, within 24 to 72 hours a week, give you the ability to gain insight of, is this creative effective? Is there a measure, whether it's awareness or whether it's all in action down funnel? You're able to have those insights and capitalize on that to move your campaigns forward. But I think, it begs a question really when you start looking at the next 6 to 8 months is, who are your measurement partners? Why are they your measurement partners? What are you measuring, and how is that relevant to your business? And at the end of the day, how is it relevant to selling more product, to gaining more subscriptions, whatever that may be, I think is highly important. So I'm a big fan of measurement, but at the same time, measure what makes sense at the end of the day. You can't really measure everything. It's like boiling the ocean.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice, because the ability to test so many things is also part of that drug that we get into. And I think where you were going, Scott, about like getting back to really good creative platforms, there's some artistry in that. And I feel like there are times when certainly you've got an insight that we're building towards. There's some purpose that's really important to your brand or your client. And you've got to trust sometimes the art versus dropping everything into a DCO. We do a ton of that, but I don't know. I bet it's a bit of a drug and a problem, I think.
Yeah. What's interesting is the more great media partners I talk to, and we're a little bit of an interesting company because we're like the smallest, holding company ever. We have like 200 employees, but we have a digital creative only agency, and then we have like this integrated agency. So the integrated agency is working kind of more for challenger brands, and then our specialized digital agency is working for Fortune 1000s. So it's given me a really interesting perspective on the process, where the digital first creative agency that works for that company I said earlier that I can't talk about, Disney, they are providing all of these creative assets to Disney, and Disney then takes all these creative assets and gives it to their media agency, right? And then their giant media agency places that with media partners. Whereas like a smaller integrated shop, and other integrated shops that my friends run, they're in charge of both media and creative. And they can leverage some of these media partners, where like when I'm on a podcast with someone from Zynga and I'm seeing how they build interactive mobile games for clients, like they have this skill set and they'll provide it as part of the partnership. I think whether you have an in-house agency, whether you're a smaller agency, like I feel like there's more responsibility, and there's not a game of hot potato that goes on where media companies say they can create the asset. They know the platform because they're in it every freaking day. And you have, creative AORs and media agencies and this decoupling of companies. And I think at scale, you have to if you're a global company, but it's certainly really frustrating when, my creative agency's never seen analytics. Right? I'm like, what? You have no idea there's 2,000 things they kind of have an idea from the client. So, I don't know. I see like challenges, because there's so many people in the room trying to make, progress for a brand, but yet sometimes we're our own silo, whether it's a company silo or it's, partnership silo. So I don't know why I wanted to go on a decoupling rant, but just pisses me off because I'm listening to both. Like Lucy's like, oh, we've made amazing programmatic creative for digital billboards, and creatives always screw up digital billboards because they're on their computer screen. So I don't know. I think there's just so many aspects to like some of the executional part. Of course, we want to be smart when we have measurement, but I'm going back to the basics, man. Like, how do we get just good stuff on platforms that is purpose-driven?
Awesome. I'm in violent agreement. I've had the fortune to work with so many different agencies and partners, and the ones that stand out, or the individuals that stand out, are those that can talk the data, talk the strategy, and oh, by the way, there are like chief creative officer team, right? It's like those are the people that really are going to do the best work. And I happen to be at a place where there's quite a bit of decoupling, trying to bring some of those things together, and it makes a huge difference.
I want to hug unicorns. I love unicorns.
There you go. Is there, get something maybe a little more specific, is there a single platform or a tool, even give it as broad as as something going on right now that you just really inspired by? You're like, I am learning a lot. Maybe it's in gaming. It might be some data set. But what's the thing that's just really kind of capturing your attention, place you're like thinking a lot about right now?
Yeah. I mean, gaming is so huge. And I think what's frustrating about gaming is I think it gets miscategorized a lot. A gamer isn't, a 22-year-old dude that lives in his mom's basement. Gaming is 35-year-old women, playing games on their mobile phones. We're all, I think, gamers. So I think it's a much broader audience, and we talk about the growth, and we talk about esports, and we get off on all the shit. But to me, I think finding ways to interact more than just telling a story or telling a message within gaming platforms, and doing it in the consumer's world. So like my dream as an advertiser and as an agency is again 35-year-old women in a platform that I can engage with them more than just an ad. And I think the gaming platforms are still undervalued from a media perspective. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in terms of the creation of assets to stick out in that space, because I think people, again, talk about a format where people are doing shit creative, and it's still a lot of DR creative. So it's still a growing and I think undervalued medium. So I'm really excited. I think at mobile gaming specifically over the next few years, I'm probably most excited about, and I'm also probably most freaked out from an execution standpoint, because you have to the cost to do really good work in that space. I think from a development standpoint is a lot.
Yeah, from a gaming standpoint, I mean, gaming is so broad now. It's console, it's personalized, right? When you think about how the world's evolved, Epic doing an amazing job with Fortnite. I mean, that is product placement at its finest. That is gaming engagement. That is out of home in a virtual world. I'm excited about the gaming space, and now you're talking about real money gaming. And so that perspective just broadens all of a sudden. What excites me as well is I really enjoy digital out of home. I love seeing amazing executions in environments that are hyper relevant, right place, right time. From all over the world, you see, especially in Shibuya, they have the greatest executions. And I'm very excited about digital out of home because it also affords the ability to tether to mobile and back, right? So you have a mixture of environment and creative that's high impact, but also personalized, and building a bridge between those two, similar to the gaming environment, where you have that personalized experience within content, I think is very powerful. It's very interesting. But I know digital out of home is your realm, Lucy, so.
Yeah, well, I feel like you guys have already touted it a bit. So I think for me, this isn't necessarily something new, but this has been an interesting year in sports of seeing a lot of major legends retire. And I think it's brought a lot of people out to attending real world events again. And so I think that thinking about the power of there's, we'll call it like the 21-year-old influencers that what are they famous for? But then you think about someone like Serena Williams, who has really been a major influence within sports, and then thinking about how brands are kind of using that to inspire people. I think going back to some of the basics of storytelling within brands is something that we're seeing more of. I'd be lying if I said I read the New York Times every day. I don't, but there was a really incredible ad for Serena, and I think it had like 3 words on it. And just that in itself was super powerful. And it had the brand's logo on it. And to me, that's all that it needed. And I think that going back to some of the elements that make ads and marketing interesting, that probably got a lot of people into this industry itself, is around touching people and getting them to see value in your products because you're aligned with their values as a company. So I think kind of going back to those more simplistic elements and thinking about where you can reach those people with some of that simple messaging that can be really valuable. And, whether it's an at-home screen just based on the physical size of the message you can get in front of someone, a banner ad on a mobile phone isn't necessarily going to do that. But I even think about like the P&G commercials around the Olympics where I have to like buy extra tissues just because I'm watching like, these really incredible stories that I think makes you think of those brands. And I'd love to see more of that continuing, that I've really seen come back to the forefront.
Awesome. Most overhyped technology or something that just drives you crazy.
Let's just back this up. Did the mobile measurement guy say out of home he's most excited about? Digital out of home. I love that.
Fact.
Connection.
Fact.
Yeah. It was the connection
pay
between.
I mean,
two,
yeah,
right?
you can't tell a lie. I mean, it's exciting. You walk outside of this building.
I'm a huge fan of out of home. I love that there's an out of home comeback and there is more measurement around it. Multi-point attribution measurement, blah, blah, blah. But I'd agree with that. Okay. Overhyped. Shit. I wish I could say influencers, but it's not. Damn it. I want to because it's such a pain in the ass dealing with it. I think TikTok. I love the platform, and there's a lot of opportunity. But just like I think 2 years ago, when I thought Instagram peaked, you don't want to be that guy that peaked in high school. I think that was Instagram like 2 years ago, because if you look at just pure ad revenue that doubles, that like Instagram ad revenue went from like 7 billion or something to like 12, and I probably get these numbers wrong, but I'm probably at least in the ballpark. So when TikTok's going to go from 5 billion one year to 11 billion the next year, just talk to the direct response people, right? Just talk to people that are in the D2C business, and then their business is freaking tanking because there's no return on ad spend in Instagram anymore. They're screwed. To me, I think TikTok's going to be overhyped. And then if you look at Instagram Reels right now, which I'm super pro organic Instagram Reels, and if you look at YouTube Shorts, YouTube and Instagram are trying to do what Instagram did to Snapchat when they crushed Snapchat as a company. Everybody's going after TikTok to get the share of those Reels. So I would really pay attention to TikTok being overhyped. Wow. I still love TikTok though, but it is overhyped.
Yeah, with you.
So I think my opinion is based on today, not tomorrow, which I know that's kind of the topic of this panel. So I think right now what's being overhyped a little bit is this concept around the metaverse. And the reason why I say that is because people are looking for an immediate reaction. And I don't think innovation is immediate. So I think when we think about that, people are trying to understand, like, what is the metaverse? What does it look like? Even when you think about Web3, I think companies are trying to figure out what that is, and they're slowly dipping their toe in. But I think that the amount that they are talked about versus how much brands are actually investing in these strategies right now is disproportionate. So I think that and I'm probably the worst person to say this because I am not a patient person, but I think we need to be a little bit patient with new technology for it to kind of figure out where it fits and where it's going before we're saying that it is like the best, newest, greatest thing. Because I think these companies themselves are still figuring it out, what that means. And so I think that we can continue to watch, but I think endorsing it as like the next best thing until we know more, I think it's kind of hard for us to say.
Lucy, you stole my thunder. I have to be honest, if I didn't hear the term metaverse ever again, I probably wouldn't be sad about it. Nor would have to explain it to my parents or anybody else. But when we start talking about along those lines of Web3, the metaverse, what is this space? Crypto is a great example, unfortunately. As you see a technology and a platform take off with tremendous momentum and see where it's gone in the last 6 months, you can take a tremendous amount of learning from it and look at the adoption And ask that question, is this sustainable? Is this a platform that is meaningful? What are those external factors outside that really can impact that platform, whether it's a metaverse, Web3, whether it's crypto? So I've kind of grouped those all together in one category. But as I said, if I didn't have to hear about the metaverse again, I wouldn't be sad.
Cool. Last question, probably a minute apiece, so pretty brief. A recommendation or something you were really excited about that you got wrong. And I'll begin, and it totally goes into what you were talking, Scott. I was on for the longest time, just this componentized, digital-born creative that was going to, just sweep the world. And I'm very much realizing there's a time and place for it. So I was on the bandwagon. I was wrong, partially.
What I got wrong is the power of collabs. I remember I had a buddy who had this T-shirt company, and he like exploded in like a little state. It was called State 48. And I'm like, dude, your brand's getting tired. You're doing too many collabs. He's doing like a collaborative. It was like, nah, collabs are the future. And this was like maybe a couple years ago. I was so wrong. I still think collabs are the future. They're hard to put together. But when you get a really good collaboration with another brand, I think there's enormous value, audience value, and brand fan value. And I thought they were getting a little tired. And so I really got that wrong. I sound like, my buddy sees me all the time. He's like, I'm a $10 million T-shirt brand. Remember when you said the collabs were tired? I'm like, shit, I do remember that. I screwed that up.
I think mine would be, I guess, more of a phrase, the concept that age is nothing but a number. I feel like as being a younger person in this industry that's had a lot of great opportunities, you always want to say, it doesn't matter how old you are, but I actually think that people taking the time to learn from those that are more experienced than they are, there's a lot of value with people that have done it, been burned, see the trends and changes in the industry. And I think continuing to ask questions and learn from people that have been around the space and have continued to evolve with it, spending more time just learning from those people versus necessarily trying to sell them something or, extract like just one thing. I think there's a lot of value in people's experience, and that shouldn't be understated.
Yeah, on my end, it goes back to creative. I think originally I was very excited and banking on AI creative and this idea that you can generate creative overall through a machine and the impact of big data and et cetera, et cetera. And it comes back to the conversation we were having about creative overall. It's a mixture of art and science. You can't let a machine tell you exactly what your audience is receptive to without a human touch, without that intuition, without your group's insight. I think it's hyper valuable. So in that capacity, I think creative still lives within this human machine relationship overall. So I kind of missed out on that piece, but only time will tell.
Cool. Scott, Lucy, Chris, thank you so much.
You.
It's been super fun.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
I
you.
hug Chris right now. That was awesome.